Welcome. Good afternoon to all of those who are joining us live and good whatever time it is for those who are watching us after the fact. This is another one of XR for Europe's LinkedIn Live interview discussions. This time we are speaking and we are joined by Daniela De Angeli, who is a instructor professor at the University of Applied Sciences in St. Pölten, which is a university, as the name implies, in Austria. And they are in a lot of important and influential XR projects, both, I mean, European funded as well as those from other funding sources. And they're one of our members, one of our very more active members. And it just came to my attention not too long ago. I knew two or three projects, but then I realized, no, there's actually more projects. So I said, this would be a great opportunity to invite Daniela to tell us all more about the variety of projects that they are involved in. Because again, it's just kind of a great example that there are certain institutions around Europe that are just very, very invested. Um, Not just invested in the subject in terms of applied research but also in developing skills and training. And of course, that's one of the things that we're going to learn about today. So Daniela, thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, thank you for inviting me. Shall I try to share my slides?
Yes, then now would be a good time. And while you do that, I will let those of the audience who are listening live, that you can write questions, leave your comments, and we will try to get to them during the course of the discussion, either during or after Daniela's presentation. So that's both for LinkedIn and for YouTube. So go ahead, let us know that you're following, and if you have any questions, go ahead and share them, and we will try to respond to them live. So I see you have your screen. Let's go ahead and bring that up.
It went smoothly. Yes. But yeah, thank you so much for inviting me again and for giving me this opportunity. And hi, everyone. So yeah, I'm calling from Austria, from the University of Applied Sciences in St. Pölten. I'm a professor there. So the university, it's actually quite young. It was founded in '96. And the campus, as you can see here from the nice photos from one of our buildings, is very modern. Very nice design, and we have a lot of cutting-edge labs. For example, here you can see the audio lab, our makerspace, but we also have an interaction lab. XR labs, one of the most advanced radio and TV labs. The reason why we have so many labs and so many labs with cutting-edge technology is because most of our work, both research and teaching, is applied. And we work with a lot of organizations and companies, both nationally and internationally. So it's very important for us to have the right tools and to have the devices that allow us to work with these organizations. We also, as you will see, try to help startups, and we're really into entrepreneurship. So in that way, we do have cutting-edge facilities that people can use. We're very active with the community. So for example, our radio and our TV lab, can be used outside the university for different projects. So, and they are used because they are very, very advanced. So yeah, we're very, very young, but also very dynamic, very present with the community. And we have a lot of innovative labs and devices. You can see here actually our website and the main email, contact email. So the university is in Austria, is in St. Pölten, which is a very, very nice little city, just outside Vienna. It's like 20, 30 minutes of train outside Vienna. I actually live in Vienna. But yeah, St. Pölten is very beautiful, classic, like Austrian city, very nice, surrounded by beautiful nature. And the quality of life is very good. The campus, have these amazing facilities, and in general, life is good. So as you can see here, we actually got an award for quality of student life. Recently, we also are very international. We have more than 165 partner universities in Europe and outside Europe, and we are leading EUDRES, which is this European network of 9 universities that range from Portugal to Latvia. And we do a lot of work with them, many collaborations, both project-wise and research-wise, but also with other students that can go to different universities. We have summer schools and so on. And of course, we are part of XR for Europe as well. And you can see here, we have at the moment 17 bachelor degrees and 16 masters, but the number is growing. And especially what we're trying to do is we're trying to have more and more international masters and bachelors in English. At the moment, we have 2 bachelors and 4 masters in English, but the number will grow. And actually, one of those bachelor and 2 of those international masters are brand new, starting now in September. And the disciplines range from, you know, communication, media, IT, AI, informatics, security, and we also have health and social sciences. And it's very good because it's very interdisciplinary. We work across all those fields. For all our projects, it's a very nice environment of collaborative work, as you will see with some of our projects, actually. So actually, very briefly, before I go and talk about some of our projects, one of the international masters that we're starting now in September is in applied XR, so I had to present it. And it's really to use extended reality to implement gamified experience or full-on games. And the idea is we want to target really to use this experience to target real-world challenges. So we work with a lot of external partners, both in Austria and outside. So companies, museums, and organizations to really kind of implement different extended reality experiences. And it's a joint master, so it's also itself very international. Our students start in Austria, then move to the Netherlands the second semester, Latvia the third one, and the fourth. They can go anywhere in any of those 3, but also they can go in any of our other partners that are also international. And the projects really can go in any of the areas that our university covers. And basically, we implement extended reality experiences in the areas of health, industry, and education. So those are the main 3 areas. You know, when it talks about health, you will see it's everything from training to help, you know, surgeons, for example, or people that are already working in the health system, or even to help patients. For industry, it's any kind of industry and includes manufacturing, for example. How can we use XR to support work and to support production, and also for safety reasons. And education includes both formal and informal education. So, for example, you know, classic school, support education in schools, but also informal education in museums, cultural organizations, so include art and heritage, for example. So let's start with the fun part, our projects. I have a few examples of ongoing projects, or even some projects we just really recently started. So, you know, I'm not like, I selected a few. I don't want to talk for an hour, but just to start, actually, we in the last year start LEAPXR. This is a project that we're leading, we're one of the co-leads. It's basically a European project where we are linking different professionals that work and academic that work in extended reality for healthcare. And it's really trying to connect education, health, so hospitals, for example, and startups. And create this kind of hub where, for example, you know, we as universities, so not just us, but also the other partner universities that are part of UDRES, the network, you know, can provide, for example, facilities, training, and then, you know, we can collaborate with startups. They have access to our facilities, and we can actually, you know, target challenges from the health sectors. So it's a really kind of dynamic environment to connect people, inform new projects. And I wanted to start with this because it's really at the basis of a lot of the projects we're doing, and is the reason why we have so many actually health-related projects. You know, we have a strong partnership with the Faculty of Health, and we have this kind of umbrella project that really facilitate collaboration in XR Health. And through that, we are actually creating a new hub And we're also creating this European Center of XR Health, connecting all the different partners and possibly more. And we really also want to support startups that want to work in the sector and develop talent. So we're really going to provide training. We're creating like videos, events, and we're targeting also, we have specific events targeting women in extended reality. And, so we're looking at both, regional, local, national, but also international developments, because again, this is a European network. So through that, actually, through UDRES and through LEAPXR, we started just very recently this new project called NextGen Nurse, which is looking at how to use extended reality, XR, to train future nurses. We actually are involving 4 nursing schools in Austria, one in Austria, one in Poland, one in Ireland, and one in Portugal. And we at this stage, we're at the initial stage where we're having brainstorming meetings and trying to figure out what the key challenges that those schools are facing, what is in common, and we are listing some case studies, some user cases actually, and the idea is that at the end of the year, so in 2-3 months, we're going to look at these challenges and really kind of figure out, okay, how can extended reality help overcoming those challenges. For example, one of the challenges coming out is simulations, right? How to help future nurses kind of engage with patients, because a lot of times you still have to rely on, for example, actors, but it's not easy to always have actors available, or they can create scenarios among students where a student acts as a patient and one as a nurse, but there are limitations with that. So how can XR help with that? And so the idea is that next year we will implement this solution informed by us talking with these nursing schools, and then we will evaluate it. And we want to, during this project, train at least 30 nursing educators and 70 nursing students across the 4 schools. This is just really for testing really the kind of first prototype of this extended reality training app, then hopefully in the long term more. And staying in the health sector, actually, we want to see if XR can also personalize the content we deliver. Going back to training, for example, nurses, like, depending on the nurse, depending on the patients, can we change how, content is presented? And in this specific project, actually, rather than looking at nurses, looks at the patients. So can we support individualized treatment? Can the application adapt dynamically, for example, depending on the user and the kind of health issues they have? And again, this is also connected with a wider hub among academia and healthcare in the industry we're trying to really create here. So this is really looking at personalized kind of healthcare providing to patients. So this is moving a bit, is still healthcare, but is also encompassing different other kind of areas. The project is called GreenTouch. So is looking actually also a climate crisis, because this is one of the greatest global health risks humanity is facing, according to the World Health Organization. So it's really important to adapt to it, and it's good also for our well-being, not just at a national, international level, but also smaller levels, for example, in the workplace, okay? So this part specifically is looking at how XR can support ergotherapy, or it's also known as occupational therapy. So can we help healthcare professionals to help people in the workplace perform daily tasks, improve their quality of life, and really be more aware of climate change and how to deal with it. So again, we are starting by trying to determine the challenges that therapists are facing. We are looking at current knowledge in climate change, ergotherapy, We're interviewing experts and trying to gain really the information of the state of the art and the key challenges currently in the field. And then basically, together with occupational therapists and practitioners, we are co-creating different XR scenarios. Again, user cases, right? So there are different stages, and you will think it's a lot of work, but it's very important because those are applied projects, and they should be informed by the stakeholders so that we're sure what we deliver, it's actually, relevant and impactful, and it's really targeting a real challenge. So the idea is then to develop and evaluate a prototype, an XR prototype of a learning environment. And again, we're looking like to co-creation and iterative cycles together with the practitioner and the therapist to really be sure that this is a working environment and it's relevant. And at the end of the project, again, this is an ongoing project. We want to provide didactic content, a policy brief in a handbook. So very applied. We really want to help here, right? And provide something that is not just a tool, but also in the long term, some material and resources for the long term. So yeah, and what we're saying now, we are doing some prototyping using different tools, including one of my favorite, which is Lego. And it's really, the fact that it can really raise awareness, increase competence, and also possibly has some potential for behavioral change and increase well-being. And staying in the field of well-being and mental health, we are looking at how XR can help nursing staff specifically dealing with growing level of stress. So, can we increase the resilience through adaptive XR interventions, for example, adaptive training solutions, recommending different work environments. So, you're really looking at personalized, customized, really training and support of well-being based on the person and the issues they are facing. So those are a few projects in the health sector. And again, we have quite a few. We have a very strong network, that we are co-leading. And for example, NextGen Nurse, we are actually leading it. So we have a very big kind of set of projects there. And we have a nursing school. We have, a health faculty that we are very closely working with as a faculty of media and digital technology. But now we're moving to industry here, and I have a couple of examples of projects that actually one is a bit more on the going and one just started now. So this is a brand new project we just literally won. And looking at the alpine winter sports kind of and the related industry. And we want to look at how XR and AI basically can help dealing with the key problems. For example, the fact that it's a dynamic environment that keeps changing. When you're skiing, there are a lot of dangers and the environment can change very fast. How can AI and XR help with that? And again, we are just at the first phase. We just started our analysis. We are going through literature review, looking at current state of the art, discussing with different experts, but also looking at ethical and legal kind of policies and the general governances of it. So we're looking at really the foundational kind of research now to then inform a co-creation workshop. And the idea is at the end, we really want 2 or 3 use cases that, we can assess. And also we want to really have some frameworks for research and development and governance and ethics in the field. We really want this project to lay the basis for a robust foundation for future research and development in the field, basically. So this is a very foundational research with some use cases and policies at the end as deliverables. And this is an ongoing project, Ergo for All. And we're looking at whether, specifically augmented reality actually can help mitigate work-related musculoskeletal disorders. which is one of the leading causes of sick leave in the EU. So, can an augmented reality app help improve the work process, looking at ergonomic criteria, for example, like if you have this app, you look at your poster, can it give you suggestion on how to improve it? Or if you are scanning an object, can it suggest you how to move it? Really create a better working condition and reduce health problems, for example, caused by poor posture. So it's really looking at ergonomic here and, in physical work, basically, for example, in the manufacturing or delivering areas. And the last field is education and art, so formal and informal educations. And I have a couple of ongoing projects here to present. So first is TOVES, which is trying to basically is looking at virtual reality for education specifically. So virtual reality, it's quite popular, but it's actually rarely used in Austria and in the Austrian education sector. So we want to develop and evaluate a toolkit, a prototype. And again, we work with the stakeholders. We want to work with students, teachers, cultural mediators to implement a toolkit that we can then evaluate and say, okay, what are the pros and cons? How can VR actually help in the education field? And we want to be sure that it's very diverse. It supports different kind of learning across different, for example, genders. And at the end, we will have a proof of concept, basically, for young learners, 10 to 14 years old. And again, in Austria, there is not much in VR in the actual school system. So this is a pretty new project, quite innovative for our country. And the last one, it's again VR, a VR simulation for oil paintings aging. So paintings are very sensitive to environmental conditions, and we want to look at how VR can help simulating how those oil paintings age. And the outcome will be really looking at framework for conservators and researchers, providing, suggesting, okay, how can you, what strategy can you use to conserve these paintings? But also suggesting strategies for storage, how to exhibit those paintings and so on. And you can see here we are actually collaborating with different institutions within Austria, for example, TU in Vienna and Krems. So yeah, it's again a collaborative project and looking at how to help preserve oil paintings. So those were a bunch of different projects, some example of really ongoing and new projects. And you can see we're working both nationally and internationally, and we're very collaborative. So all our projects are very applied. So we are working together with the stakeholders, looking at the challenges, the values, what can we do for them, then try to look at different solutions to help overcoming those challenges. And you can see actually here a bit of an iterative participatory process that we did some brainstorming session as part of the European Center for Culture and Creativity. This is a new center we have also here in Pölten that is connecting people interested in education and art and culture and creativity in general and technologies. So, and external reality is a big part of this. And we looked at how different members that are members from all around Europe, again, we're leading this, but we have partners outside Austria. What are the different techniques we use? And we're trying to put together this iterative kind of map, this participatory map to create creative, immersive experiences. But it's really what we use across projects and fields. We collaborate a lot between different faculties and research groups, and we collaborate a lot with external stakeholders. It's very important when you do something that is doesn't just need to work in the lab, but needs to work in the real world and needs to address a real challenge. So just to end those were just a few projects. We are going to apply to so many others. So for example, we're looking at how immersive experience and extended reality can help increase the well-being of older people after they retire. We're also looking with the Center for Culture and Creativity. We are looking at, for example, how extended reality, like augmented and mixed reality, can help raising awareness about climate change, sustainable practices. So there are a few projects that we're currently applying for in education, health, and different industrial kind of fields. So this is just a bit of a taste. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's a meal.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
a little,
yeah.
well.
Could you maybe just, I think on your first slide, you had some contact information
Yeah, I'm going
around
back
the,
very
we'll
fast.
go back to,
Yeah.
just so that anyone who's joining, joining after that will be
There we
able to
go.
see it again.
Yes, this is the general international office email. I'm Daniela again. This is the website.
Yeah, great. Okay, so I mean, I have a few questions. I mean, there's a lot that's presented here, and maybe we'll have a few questions from the live audience that we can get to starting now based off of what you presented. One practical question that I have about how these projects originate, how how do they come to be?
Yeah.
How often or when do these external stakeholders, these actual users or needers of what the project is going to make, how often are they the originators in these projects that you are working on or have applied, tried to get funding for? Or if they weren't the originator, how easy is it to recruit them at those earliest stages in your experience?
So there are different, actually, there are, I guess, two ways. One is because we have so many contacts with the community, both national and international. So we sometimes have meetings, we have events where we invite people, or for example, for the industry, we do have these umbrella organizations that are partners, like are partners with a lot of industries. So we have chat with them. What do, your partners need? Or they come to us and tell us, oh, we noticed that our partners have these issues. And again, we have a lot of networking entrepreneurship events, where we talk with people. And for example, I have a lot of links with museums, and sometimes they email me. They invite me to event, to brainstorming sessions. So there is that side where, because we have this contact, we have this conversation with them. So we kind of gain this. But also because we talk so much within our university, we have, kitchenette, lounge areas. We just, work into each other. We chat a lot. There is a very, very collaborative spirit. So sometimes just chatting, we discover, oh, I noticed this too. There is this issue. Or, for example, we have an institute that focus on social and arts kind of issues, social science and arts. And, sometimes we talk and, we realize, oh, some issues, for example, in diversity or accessibility are issues we notice in our work, collaborate with external companies. We're like, oh, this can be actually something we can work on and we can do a project on. So it's either born from conversation with the industry directly or internally among us. That's the beauty, right? When you have people from different fields, because again, we have different faculties, different research groups, just talking, right? Because in other university, a lot of times you are in this little island, this bubble.
Yeah, that was you kind of anticipated my next question, which is that it sounds like you don't have such strong divisions between the departments, which is often, a characteristic of a lot of institutions.
People just knock at my door sometimes. Hey, I'm thinking about this project. What do you think? Or like, I just meet people in the cafeteria. Or again, we have a lot of social spaces. We have common kitchenettes. And this is, I think it's how the building is designed. It really facilitates talking. And we have a lot of events, both internally and with external organizations. And I think, I'm Italian, so I always think, events with food, the best way to connect and talk. And it's very easy, just, it's just natural to talk with each other. Yeah.
So what would you say is the current appetite for considering immersive media as a solution to a problem? Because there's always this kind of question, because there are the different hype cycles. And I'm just curious, have you seen this become, people are more familiar with it, and so the where they're starting from, and when they start thinking about maybe this is, not just foundational research or just pure experiment, but we do think that there's a solution that this set of technologies may offer. Oh, how are you seeing that right now in terms of appetite for it and interest for it among these stakeholders, and not just externally, but also, in the other departments?
Yeah. Again, because we have also, three areas. We have health, industry, and education, and I think they are a bit different. I think industry was the first one getting there, right? Because they want technology to help, the things. And I think health is in the last year really had a lot of advances, and education is kind of the last one arriving there. But I think that all the three sectors are quite aware now. But it's also why we have those kind of hubs and those centers, because we want to kind of share information how the technology can help, because a lot of times they know of it, but they don't know the application. They know, VR, it's fun, whatever, but they cannot think of all the applications. What they know is, for example, in the education sector, they know how to share knowledge, they know how to tell stories, but they don't know how the technology can help doing that. So that's when we come there. That's why we have those events. That's why we have those centers and those hubs that we can provide the knowledge. So, where, for example, right now we are recording a few short videos to provide some information, because, again, depending on the industry, on the field, some are more aware than other, and there are different, layers. It's a kind of a range of like awareness there, where you just know or you understand and the different applications. So it's different stages to that. I think though one of the what is very important is that even though extended reality has been now around for a bit, there's still quite a few technological challenges that can be addressed. So, what we are also looking for is not just, okay, how can you use, but how can we actually solve some technical issues, for example, that are currently in the field. And of course, there is the big part of how to add AI. How can extended reality work with AI? Because AI is the other big tech kind of
potential problem solver. Yeah.
So, and you see now, for example, in the Alpine project, where we are really trying to use both, right? And some of the new projects do have AI, right, that we are now writing, because, how can they work together to really have a positive impact?
Yeah. I mean, for the training scenario, right? Be able to create more dynamic, branching narratives and scenarios.
Very highly customizable.
You, in one of the projects, I just saw a reference to open source platform. I forget now which one it was. I think it was
that's cool.
Maybe it was an industry one, or even an education, maybe the first education one. But there was a reference to ultimately creating kind of an open or use an open source platform. And I want to ask about that, because there's always this discussion within Europe now. Open source has become this really important topic as part of the ultimately the strategy towards kind of a technical sovereignty and independence. And I just wonder, we actually have a session with a university in Ireland next month, where the instructor is using a Godot engine to teach lots of different things. And I was curious, how do you see, because all these different projects, there's probably a lot of different tools, a lot of different things that you're using. What would you say is, here's this one, this project. Do you have a lot of open source solutions that you think are there and out there? You have a lot of options, or are we needing to develop? Are there some gaps where there just is not an open source option available in a particular application area?
Well, so again, it depends on the project, because, for example, some projects are together with companies and we're developing something for the company, so it cannot be open source, especially in industry, right? And sometimes in health is, for the nursing school, but it's mostly in the industry, right? And there are grants where actually you say, whatever you develop is for them, is not open. This is because it's educational, right? And there are tools like, for example, now in NextGen Nurse or also what was the other? GreenTouch is trying to have some open source resources that are available free for everybody. And it's not just the product itself, is right, the handbooks, video tutorial, content, proof of concept. So when we can, this is really our priority, but we cannot always do that, because depending on the product, unfortunately. So yeah, that is something we're looking into, and actually, and I also have a company myself. I'm not just an academic. So I have a company that develops serious games, and Godot is one of the things we were looking at,
Yeah.
actually, including having our own, template and our own systems, and so yeah, that's definitely one of the priorities. For example, the Toggles is looking at how can be, accessible to a variety of people, how can be open source. Um, yeah,
But I think that's also like that's open source as the result, but open
yeah,
source, right, can be part of the foundation of a result. Like, because, right, you can create a proprietary
yeah.
product or
Mhm,
platform
mhm,
built on a foundation that is open source.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's usually how open source, right, is used. It's ultimately a component of,
yeah,
something that then is made
yeah.
proprietary. So in that sense, what are you? Yeah. So again, this would kind of be like a Godot engine foundation. You could still make an application that itself is proprietary, but it's built in
Mhm.
this tool. Or do you find enough tools
Uh-huh.
if you wanted to? Do you find enough tools or
Hmm.
platforms or services that are built themselves on open source? So then you can start with that foundation.
Yeah, so you're using, it's basically, thinking of what software and possibly hardware that we're using.
Hmm.
So yeah, so right now, honestly, one of the leaders is still Unity, right? So
Hmm.
we still use a lot of Unity and a bit of Unreal, but this, Unity is still the main one, both with my company and with the university. It's just there is so much, and because we, with extended reality, you need to develop something for the headset. So, Unity has a lot of SDK, a lot of plugins,
Yeah.
makes your life so much easier. Especially when you're working with mixed reality, or you need the see-through. It's just so much easier. So yeah, as a, especially we are not a company, right? As an organization, sometimes we work with external companies, right, and they develop it, and we are just doing the research.
Hmm.
But even companies, for example, mine and others, Unity is still like the
Yeah.
main thing, followed again by Unreal, and Godot is still like,
It's emerging. Yeah. I
it's
mean, I
emerging,
think,
but it's still
yeah.
not there yet. Again, my company is looking into it, but is not there yet for us to do most of the projects we need to. So there's still some limitations, and I think it's because also, for example, Unity has, and now Unreal is around for a while, but you have so many forums, you have so much material
Mhm.
available that it's just the ease,
I mean,
and
I'm a Unity. It would be difficult for me to try. I mean, even Unreal, as much as there's a
yeah,
common understanding of what it is you need to make
yeah,
and do,
yeah,
it is a challenge to make that transition.
yeah, and it's so
But
flexible. Unity is so flexible,
yeah,
the way
and it has OpenXR. It is supporting
exactly,
of OpenXR as an open
yeah.
standard for hardware.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
also a specific SDK for specific headsets. There is so much
Hmm.
because it's been around for so long.
Hmm.
Again, there are some issues. There were some issues with licensing and so on, but it's still the main one out
Yeah,
there.
that's the one that's scared. I think that's the
Mhm.
one that kind of changed the industry's perception was that
Yeah,
particular event. I don't know, a couple of years ago now, or two, three
yeah,
years ago now. I forget when it was. Um, but they're looking just because we had a webinar not too long ago with Unity. They are looking to become more involved in
yeah,
EU research, EU funded research
yeah,
projects
yeah,
of all different
yeah.
types.
Yeah, because again, smaller company, it's hard. Like we looked into even implementing, and sometimes we can implement something internally without any tool, but it takes so longer, so much
Hmm.
longer. It's not economically feasible or time, especially for smaller company. When you implement serious or applied games, it's a lot implemented from universities or indie companies, and requires so much resources.
Hmm.
You do need a tool, honestly.
Yeah. Can we
Already
go
takes
back
at
to
least 1 year to implement stuff. Imagine 1, 2, 3 years. Imagine, with Unity.
well, yeah, it'd be nice if it already exists. And I think that's their interest. They're looking at projects through which they would be developing specific new features and maybe custom integration
Yeah,
pathways and such.
yeah. But it's not just for XR, it's also for AI. It will be good to have more local models
Yeah.
rather than, the big ones. Yeah. Anyway.
big topics, big topics,
Yeah,
even beyond the specific XR
yeah.
context. Those are big strategic topics. Can we maybe go back just one before we kind of finish up? I'm curious about the NextGen Nursing because this is a project that XR for Europe is part of a project called VR Health Champions,
Mm-hmm.
and so definitely LEAPXR was interesting to us because it's supporting entrepreneurs. I think maybe first young entrepreneurs particularly. And VR Health Champions is supporting 4 or 5 SMEs, startups to grow and to understand the structure of payments and the pathways to being certified and to be payable for the tool and the product, the clinical service that's being provided. And I wonder with NextGen Nursing, because we only touched on it briefly some time ago when before it had started, and I understood that one of the things that maybe this project was going to do is to kind of evaluate what types of tools and uh, products out in the market met the needs of nurses. There was, going to be this assessment of what immersive tools nurses could already be using. Can you talk just a little bit more? This is a project that I'm particularly interested in terms of skill building because I think, right, you have the virtual reality, you have the mixed reality, but we're also going to have uh, data glasses that will have some type of visualizations more.
Yeah.
The question, of course, is the platform and whether that platform could ever be used in such a data privacy sensitive, and tolerance, no tolerance for data privacy violations type of context like healthcare. Can you talk a little bit more about like maybe this project and how you're going to work with nurses to kind of evaluate what they can be using now and coming up?
Yeah. So again, up till now, basically till October, we have been having brainstorming meetings both online and in person with the nursing schools. So
Hmm.
mostly with the teachers at this point, and ask the teacher, okay, what are the main challenges you're facing with the nurses, with teaching? What do you see your students? What are the issues with the students? So right now, I've been talking with the teachers of the nursing schools, and we had basically in-person meeting focused on the challenges where we discussed, okay, those are the main challenges. And then we try to kind of have a thematic analysis and try and figure out what are the common issues. And then we had the second meetings where we looked at, okay, can we build case studies, like use cases, from those. And now in October, we're going to have another in-person meeting where we have this map, we have this list of use cases, each targeting different challenges, and we're trying to figure out what different devices and solutions. So looking, at different headsets, for example, is headset the right solutions? Why not?
Hmm.
Not? And really, saying, okay, what technology can solve this problem? Why? What is more feasible for both the teachers, so the educators and the students? Because that's the thing, right? Maybe a lot of times I feel people just gravitate towards the fancy new set, the new
Hmm.
technology, but it's not necessarily the best fit. So it's really looking, okay, what can help the most
Yeah.
in this sense. Yeah. So we did some testing of some applications already, and we identified some issues. Some people, for example, got sick or dizzy with the headsets, with the virtual reality headsets. So yeah, we are looking at different solutions. We're thinking of going towards augmented reality, so or mixed reality, so they can still see the
Yeah.
environment, but they basically the patients show up basically, right? But yeah, this is a conversation we're going to have in October, and it's basically us using these scenarios basically as a tool to
Hmm.
and we're going to have developers and technicians there. So we have one that is basically a developer, another one that has experience in technology for healthcare, and I will be there, and we're going to figure out really what solutions can map. And the teachers are going to be there, so it's very collaborative and very iterative. It takes a long time,
Yeah.
but it's very
I,
important to do that, the mapping.
And it probably changes during the course of it because I'm thinking, even when we're talking about 3 or 6 months of a process, you think about the headlines that come up, AI being an example, different AI applications, but then also the more awareness of where there are problems, with those applications that kind of revealed themselves, and then the hardware. I think the expectations and perhaps the misinformation about the capabilities of these glasses always comes in, right? Because there are people who believe and are convinced of a certain capability. So that, and the comfort level, the form factor is so compelling, then it likely is a lot of going back and reevaluating previous decisions because of new information that comes in or just over the course of the process.
Yeah, and plus, again, for example, going back to Unity, the newest headset don't necessarily have SDK for Unity, or the new Meta Ray-Ban are pretty cool, but at the moment there is not much for development purposes. While if you go back to the classic Meta Quest, for example, there is plenty. So we also need to see what development-wise is available, and then of course, do you need to see through how much screen capability do you need? Because, for example, a Snap are pretty cool, but the screen is still quite limited. And yes, some of them are still very bulky. Do they have, for example, I wear glasses and you do too, do they have, because some of them have way to add what is called basically an extra piece to adapt to the glasses.
The pad. Yeah.
Do they have that? Because a lot of people wear glasses nowadays. So yeah, there are a bunch of things. Or like, for example, one of the projects we are actually working now to apply for a grant is with older people, in which technology can reach them. And there is a lot of problems because, for example, older people look 60 plus, so there is a wide range there. But if you look at older range, like headsets are big issues because of balance, dizziness, nausea. Also, like, for example, if you think 60, even early 70s, no problem with smartphone or like smart devices, but older may have some issues. So, what technology do you use in that case, right? Depending on, and also if you look at the hospital, depending on what issues are there, some technologies may be not accessible. There are some controllers that are more accessible than others, more ergonomic. So there are so many factors to consider, really.
Yeah, I mean, you have to really narrow it down to a very, very specific application, and I think that's always a series of compromises, because you can imagine how this could benefit others, but you don't have the resources or the technology that's available does not have, as you said, like controller functionality or design does not support reaching the audience that the actual experience, the interaction design might benefit. It's one of the areas, the older populations, it's so clear the value proposition of these types of tools and technologies, and of course there are some successes in reaching groups, but it's but you often do wonder, like once you have worked on a project, you do wonder about the true success rate or impact of well-known use cases, because or case studies, because you just understand that there were probably so many times where that didn't work the way they expected, not because of any mistake per se. It's very diverse, and it's very challenging.
Yeah, very diverse, and that's an issue, right? Because so when we develop those kind of experience together, with the stakeholders, right? We make it so it's targeted to them, but that there are issues of generalizability and validity in a more general. Can this be applied to other things? If you look at the specific challenges, okay, for example, now we have 4 nursing schools and we're trying to look at common. So that's maybe a bit more generalizable, but a lot of times we're working in a specific industry with a specific, museum or school or whatever. It's very targeted. So it's hard when you have this applied research to generalize it a lot of times.
I mean, I think even in healthcare, I mean, from the experience of VR Health Champions, it was. I mean, I learned it. This was not new to many of the partners who were in this field, but for me, it was surprising that even across countries within the single market, there are just so many different regulations that apply in healthcare that are not generalizable, which makes going. I don't want to. I'm just saying Austria and Germany, but like even countries that are neighboring, there are just a lot of things that have to be redone, even if they're the same. They simply have to be replicated. And in many cases, it's not a simple replication. It is adapting to just, it's a different school, different regulation that informs the curricula,
Oh
even
yeah.
in the training. So yeah, nurses everywhere are not the same nurses everywhere.
No, no.
Yeah,
That's a big issue. Yeah. But also, like for example, the master we're doing, right? Because it's across
yeah,
different universities, we really notice how many differences there are within universities. I
yeah.
mean, education system, policies, AI policies, grading system. There are so many differences across, even in Europe, right?
Hmm.
Um, like, if we look even at the grading system, each country has different grading, even though we all have credits, right? But they all work differently. It was a very, opening kind of my view
Eye-opening,
of
yeah,
like, oh
experience.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely, um, especially if you're trying to provide training material, right?
But
Um,
I would think, it's always a question of whether we look at all these um, different processes, different policies, different ways of doing things in Europe, as it makes it difficult maybe to scale and to create one potential um, service or solution for everybody. But the alternative, if you look at it as a feature, this diversity is a feature of Europe, then it's like if you can serve three or four different partners in Europe and different markets and ecosystems in Europe, then presumably you could serve the whole world because you've already created some type of um, adaptable and inclusive and accessible solution to serve those four. Going out of Europe hopefully would be much easier than a product or service that was developed in one particular country and was very successful, but was then trying to go abroad.
yeah.
So that's the hope
Uh,
anyway
yeah,
for
no,
Europe.
and I
Yeah.
think it's also why we created the LEAPXR,
Hmm.
because it's trying to connect different countries, at least in Europe. Um, so, and kind of have, common ground, common like training, common facilities, and also conversations so that,
Hmm.
we can discuss projects, ideas, challenges. And I think it's very important to have those kind of connections because, yeah, again, there is so much diversity and communication is key and conferences are not enough because there's a bit of, networking there, but this is really,
Hmm.
focused on talking about values, needs,
But it,
facilities we share. Yeah.
but this is also, I think important to put into the thinking of an entrepreneur at the very earliest stages, not, because I would say it's somewhat typical that an entrepreneur, of course, focus on their immediate environment, their national market, because of course they have the same language, they intuitively understand, how things work better there than elsewhere. But then I think oftentimes what we see is the thinking is establish it in your market and then go to a bigger market like the US, for example, because of the scale. And I often find a lot of people are not looking at that within Europe because they think it is so challenging to go to all these different countries and deal with the different languages and whatever regulations are required. But if you embed that at the beginning from the foundation that maybe your team is already multinational distributed across Europe, and that may be something that's an outcome here. But you're also just thinking you have this network across different markets in the single market. Hopefully people start seeing the paths, because it's not to say it's easier, and that's not the point of any project to try to make that, to try to address the challenges there, but at least to have people thinking about it earlier on, then hopefully some of these solutions come intuitively through the entrepreneurial process.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the
Okay.
hope.
All right. Well, I thank you very much, Daniela. I think, it was even more than I expected. So I was happy that you did this because I've wanted to learn myself about all of these projects. I only knew a few of them. I mean, most of these were new to me, particularly in the industry and education. So this was informative to me. I certainly think it must have been informative to everyone who watched. I want to thank you again for preparing this and sharing all of this with us.
Yes. Thank you so much again for the opportunity. Always happy to share, our projects.
Great. Well, then I just let the audience know that we have at least two more. Yes, we have two more scheduled sessions coming up. One in August, and you can check our LinkedIn because it'll be already posted there. That's with DOVR, the 360 video platform, and Wow Effect, which is a studio in the Netherlands who's creating 360 videos, and talking about how that platform is finding its audience and growing, and starting to drive monetization for creators of 360 videos. And DOBR is based in Slovenia, so it's a good European success story.
Close by.
And then in early September, I mentioned we have Brian Dugan, who's a professor in Ireland, who is using Godot Engine to teach his students about design and development of immersive experiences. So that will be 2 upcoming sessions. So if you enjoy this session, we have many more. So on that, I want to thank everybody who watched us live, and then hope to see you again at the next session that we do. And Daniela, thank you very much again.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming by.